Chapter 33. Cassandra regained consciousness hours later, the taste of blood and gravel still in her mouth as she opened her eyes. She laid in almost complete darkness, only just able to make out the metal bars that contained her within a cell. As the feeling returned to her body, she felt the horror of her situation creep over her. Chains wrapped around her wrists. She was only able to move her hands and fingers. She felt that her costume had been removed, and she must have been forced into some kind of imprisonment uniform at some point. With each new discovery, her breaths grew heavier and with more distress. She pulled and struggled against the chains, but they did not release their grip, no matter how she tried. "I suppose you're awake, then." Cassandra turned to her right and was barely able to make out a human shape seated against the wall of an identical-looking cell. His voice was worn and gravelly. "You were quiet when they brought you in. But you must be very important if they stuck you next to me." "Who are you?" Cassandra struggled to look at him. The outline of a long beard came into focus as she approached. "I'm not really anyone anymore. I overheard the things they were saying. They called you Batgirl. Is that true?" Cassandra contemplated her answer for a moment before she decided lying would do her little good, and may even be detrimental to a fellow prisoner. It wasn't as though he'd recognize her as a civilian anyway. "Yes, I am." "I used to see you on the television years ago. Not enough red-headed heroes out there, I always thought." "Red?" Cassandra said. "Sorry, not that Batgirl."
Fair enough then."
Most of the figure remained indistinguishable. "It is dark. Hard to see," Cassandra said.
"It wouldn't matter if it wasn't. I'm blind."
"I'm sorry."
"Don't be. You didn't cut out my eyes."
In the midst of their conversation came a loud clang, and a harsh light briefly overtook the room. Cassandra struggled to adjust her vision as two more figures entered, and pressed something to the two slots at the bottom of her and the other man's cell through a flap. Cassandra paid it little mind. "Let me free!" She screamed it twice more before the door shut, and she was again trapped in the darkness.
"They won't listen to you. He already owns them. If you aren't the stubborn type, you should just eat your food and be over with it."
Cassandra asked. "What?"
"The initiation. The food is drugged. It'll start wrecking your senses within days. That, combined with epiphany, and you'll belong to them inside of a month."
The word epiphany held Cassandra for a moment, but she pushed her other question aside. "How long have you been?"
"Years now. Because I learned how to sniff out their damn drugs."
Cassandra heard the bearded man approach the food that had been slipped through his slot, raised a cup of broth to his nose with his right hand, and sniffed it.
"Oh yes, it's heavy in there. I'd have starved to death if they didn't want to keep me alive so badly."
He overturned the cup and emptied its contents onto the floor.
"Go on hunger strike for a day or two and they'll start alternating between fresh and drugged, if you've got the nerve for it."
"Why are they keeping you alive?" Cassandra asked. "And where are we?"
This is a dungeon, built below the voice of God. Where that is, I have no idea," he said. "They keep me alive because their bastard of a leader is intent on breaking me. For 5 years now I've been exposed to his work, but have yet to surrender. I'm alive because my death would be an embarrassment to these psychopaths. So they treat me as a test in patience. Sooner or later my spirit will break, and I'll profess to their twisted idea of God and morality."
Cassandra asked, "You a believer?"
"Never was. Grew up agnostic before I was dragged here. Yourself?"
"Thought so." Cassandra hugged herself for warmth. "Not so sure now."
"I wasn't taught to believe in anything before I was brought here. Always thought there was something severely wrong with a loving deity who told his servants to capture others and give them the choice between death and conversion."
"Never saw God like that," Cassandra said.
"Yeah? Well, as you can see, some people do."
The stranger sat against the wall again.
"God the great and mighty, promising a kingdom of glory to his followers. After he didn't leave them any proof of his existence, but a couple vaguely written books to go off of. Everyone else, they can just burn in hell."
Cassandra dipped her face into her hands and struggled to contemplate the state she was in. "Never believed in hell. We talked about it, but thought we needed to hope for redemption, not pray for suffering."
"Oh, hell is my favorite part, Batgirl,"
the man said.
Because if there really is any justice out there, then I can hardly wait till Dan falls over, dies, and goes to that damn pit.
Cassandra double-took. Dan? Know the Seraphim's name?
Of course I know his name. I was raised with the ungrateful bastard. He's my younger brother.
Cassandra stared at the bearded shape in shock. Joshua? Joshua Leibowitz? The man approached the barrier between their two cells and said,
Well, I suppose you know my real name. So what about yours? Because Batgirl is a little surreal, even in this place.
Again, she wondered what she might gain from sharing that information with him, but could not figure out anything to lose. Cassandra.
Well, Cassandra.
He lifted his left arm to reveal it had been amputated at the elbow.
Welcome to the kingdom of God, where if your hand causes you to sin, they slice it off.
He lowered himself to her level as, with shock, she noticed his eyelids stitched shut.
If your eyes cause you to sin, they cut them out. And when they realize I told you about the drugs and the food, they'll probably decide I've used my tongue to sin.
Cassandra looked at him. Feelings of sickness and horror amplified with every word he said. What is all this? How can this be? Joshua again leaned against the wall and sighed.
It began nearly 20 years ago.